Let's get some reaction here in Gloucestershire because Dan Harris is from Charlton Kings, originally from upstate New York, hosts the podcast Over Here, Over There, and basically he's been glued to all the coverage. Morning, Dan.
Morning, Nicky.
Hello. And then plenty of coverage as well, of course. What do you make of the last 24 hours? It was all just beginning, wasn't it, this time yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it all rather surreal, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like his speech in 2017, it wasn't a typical inaugural address by an incoming president. I mean, looking at it like from a macro and micro sense, Donald Trump was standing in the same spot that he led an insurrection about a little over 4 years ago. And to see that decorum and everyone sitting at attention and being on good behavior, it just seemed a bit surreal, given what we know what happened in the past, and also what he has been through over the last 4 years, through the court cases, through his felony conviction, his civil trials and convictions there. So there was a lot of history over the last 4 years for him personally as well. And there, though, he stood, putting his hand on the Bible and being sworn in as U.S. president for the 47th U.S. president.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot to take in, wasn't there, yesterday? And we've heard that the term executive orders, I've mentioned a few things that he wanted to do on day one. And there was even, at this sports arena, there was a desk, wasn't there, and a pen, and he was there signing the executive orders in front of everyone at the sports arena. What exactly is an executive order?
Executive order really is the power the president has. I mean, he's carrying out his job. He's implementing the legislation that Congress passed, but it gives him the authority to a little bit of leeway as to interpret how he does that, how he implements, how he, quote unquote, executes that order, because he's the chief executive of the United States. So he can make this fiat or proclamation or decree that, yes, I'm going to send troops down to the border, to enforce the legislation that's on the books or whatever. So it's really just kind of an extension of the legislation. He doesn't get any more money or budget to implement that. He has to spend what Congress has approved, but he has the prerogative to do these executive orders. And but they can be reversed as well, because these executive orders can be then reversed by the next president, who gives their interpretation of what an executive order should be on that subject that he's just proposed. So it's a little bit of a gray area, but he's there just it's an added power that it feels like he can actually determine legislation with that executive order, doesn't it? I mean, the way he's making all these pronouncements last night in his speech. But no, he can't go beyond what the legislation has, what's been approved.
Interesting. Yes. And as you say, it can be reversed by the next incoming president. And he was doing some of that with Joe Biden's policies as well.
That's right.
Yeah, which we also heard about last night. You were over in the US in the lead up to the election. We heard you on the radio there. Lots of talk then about how divided the country is. Would you say anything's changed since then?
Not at all. No change. No change. In fact, I know a lot of folks who, I think half the country turned their TV sets off and the other half watched. If they had, and those who had turned their TV sets off, I know a lot of people I know that left the country or did something different on yesterday. They just didn't want to see, Trump being inaugurated. So what we witnessed, and I was there with David Smith and my podcast colleague Claudia Kusler, and we just witnessed a very divided America. Very divided America. I mean, in the urban areas, very heavily Democratic. When we were in Philadelphia, it seemed like Kamala Harris was a shoo-in. It seemed like wall to wall, she was just going to win by, not a comfortable margin, but she was going to win. Well, that was not the case. Rural America and some of the suburbs and a lot of demographics went Trump's way. And I mean, there's a lot of soul searching now going on the Democratic side as to why that happened and what to do going forward. But it still remains a very divided country. And to hear that Trump wants to be the peacemaker and unifier, but then hear what he had to say with these executive orders and what he's going to do as far as wokeism and things like that, I don't think there's going to be much change in that.
Yes, interesting, isn't it? Yeah. How do you think world leaders are going to react? They're going to be scrambling to get a plane to Washington to go and have a meeting with Trump as soon as possible?
Well, I think after the election, I think hopefully they all game planned it as to how they're going to deal with Donald Trump this time. What's going to be different, or what did they learn before? And like, for instance, as we were talking offline, the UK special relationship. How special is it? It's going to be tested, and how do you deal with Donald Trump? Well, I think that really, if you want to talk about a special deal or policy, no. What you really got to do is understand how to deal with him personally. It's a very personal thing. He's very much an authoritarian, anti-democratic figure now. He's going to do things his way. He's going to project power based on his personality and wants and likes. So you got to know how to deal with Donald Trump. So whether that's be flattery or just trying to get on his good side in some way or another, that's how you really should deal with this president. And it's going to be a tricky proposition for the UK being between Europe and the United States now that we're out of the EU, and how we deal with a U.S. president, the likes of Donald Trump. So it's going to be a real test for Keir Starmer and his government.
Yes, be interesting to watch how all world leaders react actually in the coming days. Much to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Nicky.
Thank you so much. Dan Harris from Charlton Kings, originally from upstate New York, hosting a podcast called Over Here, Over There, and just taking in all of the theatre, I suppose, and drama of yesterday. Also interesting to watch all the body language when all the former presidents get together, and a lot of eyes trained on them and their reactions to various things that Donald Trump was saying there on day one of the second term as president, of course. And yes, all the theatre, I'm sure, will continue in the days and weeks ahead. Thanks to Dan for joining us today. Just gone 10:20.